Scene 2, Episode 5.
Seatbelts, everyone! Please let this be a normal field trip. With a Chris? No way!
Cruising on down Main Street, you're relaxed and feeling good. Next thing that you know, you see octopus in the neighborhood, surfing on the sine wave, swinging through the stars. Take a left at Human Testing, take your second right back Mars on the magic school bus. Alligator nostril, climb on the magic school bus. Spank a plankton too. On magic school bus. Stop the river of love. On magic school bus. Such a fine thing to do. So strap your bones right to the seat. Come on in and don't be shy. Just to make your day complete. You might get baked into a pie on the magic school bus. Step inside, it's a wilder ride. Come on, ride on the magic school bus.
Action potential. Go.
Going.
Should be the new profile pic. Do I tag that one? I don't know. Kind of scary. What's up, dude? What's up? I like that one. It's good, right?
Class, good morning. So today we're going to be going over the anatomy of a neuron. So we have three basic parts of our neuron. We start here with our cell body that has the nucleus.
Could you speak louder? I can't hear anything.
That propagates the action potential, and your dendrites that are going to pass the information on to the next cell. So what's important? Our cell nucleus is here, so this is going to have our gray matter. The myelin looks white, so this is our white matter within our cell. And then again we have the gray matter of the next cell bodies. These purple things here are very important. These are myelin sheaths. The myelin, if we're in the central nervous system, is our oligodendrocytes, and in our peripheral nervous system is our Schwann cells. They're going to wrap around the axon, and it gives it a property called saltatory conduction. So when we get our action potential, the message actually relays jumping across.
What the hell is she talking about? I have no idea.
Be given out to the next cell body that starts the same process. Let's go, class. Let's take chances, make mistakes, get messy. Let's get depolarized. Okay, kids, we've reached the cell membrane. Here you can see the membrane potential of the cell. Intracellularly, you have large, negatively charged particles and tons of potassium. Extracellularly, you have lots of sodium and chlorine. Resting membrane potential is the difference in electric charge across the membrane. This is due to four main reasons. The first is the inequality of ion concentration on different sides of the membrane. The second is because the anions are trapped inside the cell.
Help! Let me out!
The third is the selectively permeability of the membrane to ion differences. Potassium channels, also called leaky channels, remain open at negative voltage until about negative 80 millivolts. And the fourth is that sodium-potassium pump indirectly helps maintain resting membrane potential.
Sodium. Potassium. Sodium. Potassium.
In order to get in, we're going to have to depolarize the cell and open up some sodium channels. Ida, in your own words, could you describe the difference between a passive or local potential and an action potential?
This whistle is trying to open the door,
but she's unable to get to the other side because she can only go so far. This is an example of a local potential. If she stays and tries to open it for a long period of time, she may be able to open the door. That would be temporal summation. But if she gets other local potentials to help her, like her students, she can open the door and get to the other side. This is an example of spatial summation. Getting to the other side. So this is an example of an unmyelinated axon.
Unmyelinated.
Juan, piggybacking off Paul's analogy for an action potential, could you think of an analogy for excitatory and inhibitory postsynaptic
An IPSP
potentials?
is inhibitory and an EPSP is excitatory. Think about it like this. You have a bad conscious and a good conscious when you're thinking about doing something bad. The good conscious will try to convince you not to do it, but if you have multiple signals telling you to do what's bad, then the end result will be in favor of what's bad, and you end up doing that bad thing, like throwing a piece of paper across the room.
Paul, what do you remember about action potentials?
One day, me and my dad had a plan to go to Plumber World, a magical place with candy, rides, and physical therapy knowledge galore. On the ride there, I was getting more and more excited. As soon as I could see the building, I yelled. I thought I might burst. Once we got to the gate, I couldn't control myself any longer and yelled, "Can't wait to ride the homunculus, Dad! It's the biggest, strongest, curviest coaster in the world!"
Yay.
This is like the stimulation and rising phase of the cell. At negative 40 millivolts, sodium channels opened and sodium ions fled inside, creating the action potential.
My head was spinning and I was excited as possible. However, soon after I noticed some signs that were not encouraging. The elevators weren't working, and there were lots of men with hard hats and heavy tools.
This is like the peak and falling phase. At plus 50 millivolts, sodium channels closed, potassium channels opened, so potassium ions fled outside the cell.
Hey, sorry kid, homunculus is closed for repairs. No! This was the worst news I'd ever heard in my life. Dropped me lower than I'd ever felt. I would not get up for anything. My dad and the construction workers were imploring me to move, but I would not do it. No way.
This would be the absolute refractory period. Membrane is incapable of response to any stimulus when sodium pumps open.
Finally, the one and only ghost of James Syriacs walked through the door. He told me if I got up, he'd talk selective tissue testing tension with me. So I jumped off the floor and was excited again.
This is the relative refractory period, where supermax stimulus required to cause action potential during hyperpolarization.
Craig, why don't you explain how we'll be transmitted out of the cell?
We can catch a ride with the neurotransmitters. As the action potential comes down the neuron, it causes the calcium channels to open, allowing calcium to enter the cell. This triggers the release of vesicles containing neurotransmitters, which fuses with the presynaptic membrane, releasing neurotransmitters into the synaptic cleft.
And that's how we'll get out.
Geez, not a lot of room on this bus.